Morning, everybody. Crappy Mondays to you. In fact, it's so crappy that my kettle broke yesterday. I'm having to drink my tea that's been microwaved. Awful. And it's been sitting, it's just gone cold. So it's Monday, isn't it? Welcome to Monday, everybody. Welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by the Mirror's political correspondent, Sophie Huskisson. Morning, Sophie.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You've managed a warm cup of tea this morning because I haven't. It's been beyond me. Now, this is the People's Paper Review. So get into the comments, ask us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them for you. Those of you listening later on podcast will just have to go back under the duvet that you were hiding from the storm under last night. So what have we got for you today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on a new campaign fronted by footballer Harry Kane about promoting mental health in schools. But let's go to page 2, where the nation's mental health is being trolled once again by the Tories. And this time, Sophie, there are suggestions that the budget in March will include 1% mortgages to help young people onto the housing ladder. But that's not quite what it's cracked up to be, is it? What's wrong with the idea?
No, so this obviously appears to be a really great thing to appeal to young voters. And you've got to think the Tories are really trying on this at the moment. There was YouGov polling out, I think it was last week, and it said that just 10% of people under 50 are planning to vote Conservative at the next general election. So you can imagine them in their back rooms clutching at what they can to try and appeal to younger voters. Obviously, it's been a really hard time after Liz Truss's mini budget sent mortgage rates spiraling, after COVID, after Brexit. It's been really, really hard for young people and first-time buyers to get on the housing ladder. With mortgages, you usually need around a 10% deposit. And if we think about the average price of a house at the moment, we're talking around 280,000. That means you're going to have to put down about 28,000 if it's a 10% deposit. Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, they're scheming and they're saying, okay, well, why don't we bring this down to 1%, which means you'd have to put down £2,800. Obviously, that sounds great. Okay, I don't need to save up for as long. It's a much more accessible way to get on the property ladder. But what this means is it's obviously much riskier for banks and for building societies to loan out so much more of the property amount, which means that your interest rates, your fees, your mortgage repayments, everything is going to be a lot higher. And it ultimately means young people will be lumbered with these huge mortgages that they're going to be paying off for an incredibly long time. So as we get with lots of policies, careful what it says in the small print, check on Martin Lewis, money saving expert, because there's usually a catch.
Exactly. So it's not actually a 1% mortgage, it's actually a 99% mortgage that you're getting. Now, so the average house price in the UK is 288,000, as you say. In London, according to Rightmove, it's £731,000. And of course, it's that big bubble in London which kind of affects the house prices everywhere else. I think elsewhere in the paper today, it's saying the average house in the UK that's been sold has put on more than 100 grand since it was sold last time. People are making that kind of 100 grand profit when they sell a house, then it's becoming unsustainable, isn't it? What do you think, everybody? Have you had problems getting on the housing ladder? Do you know someone who would desperate for a 1% mortgage and would pay the fees and doesn't care, just wants to get on the housing ladder? Mike says the problem with 99% mortgages is that the higher the loan to value, the higher the interest rate will be. Mortgages will still be unaffordable for most. It's the monthly, but you could afford the deposit because it's £1,000, but it's the monthly. If you're suddenly paying, double what your rent would be, then it's not sustainable. It's not possible, is it? Wherever you live, if this scheme comes off, you could, in theory, buy a house for less than £3,000 or less than £8,000. It's London. But only has Rishi Sunak or Jeremy Hunt actually got the power to do this? Can they tell banks they have to offer this? Because, they're not in charge of the banking industry. It's completely independent. If banks thought their regulations or their businesses didn't want to lend 99% of a property value to some 21-year-old who's going to, be out spending their money every Saturday night, they're not going to do it, are they?
No, exactly. They don't have to do this. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of risk in this for banks. Basically, what the government's got is the moment is they have a mortgage guarantee scheme. And this works with 5% mortgages to try and help people get on the property ladder. It works in the same way with 5% deposits as opposed to this bold new idea, radical plan of 1% deposits. And it basically just provide some protection to banks and building societies in case if people fail to pay back their mortgage repayments or they're at risk of getting their house repossessed. So the government could perhaps look at extending this scheme and extending it to 1% deposits from 5% deposits to give some protections for banks and building societies. But obviously this is a huge risk. The economy is only just recovering and we're in very uncertain global times. We've had war in several different parts of the world. You know, we saw what happened with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and what that did to oil prices, and things like that just mean that it's already risky for banks, but that makes it far more risky for them to take big jumps when they don't know whether the market's going to be stable this time.
Yeah, if you can't afford the 5% mortgage, can you afford interest rates going up? Can you afford oil prices going up? Can you afford to actually run your house and insure your house and all the other things that come with it? It does strike me rather, Sophie, that this is a way, if you have a very cheap way of buying a house and the only people who can actually service those mortgages are the ones who are earning quite good money, right, which is what it is. This isn't going to help 21-year-old shelf stackers at Lidl, is it? This is going to help city flyboys. They're going to buy more than one house. This is going to benefit landlords. This is going to benefit buy-to-let people. This is going to benefit people who want a second home. This is going to benefit people who are already fairly wealthy, comparatively so, who feel that they are going to easily be able to afford the monthly payments at a higher rate, but just want to get on the property in order to speculate on the market. This isn't going to help the average person who's living in digs and is desperate to sort of settle down somewhere.
Well, yeah, and this is always the big question, isn't it? Like at the moment, we've had different politicians and housing charities and associations come out and accuse this of being a short-term fix because essentially it's something that you can write on a poster, it looks catchy, and you might see that and think, oh, you know, I can't get on the property ladder. That is actually something that really stresses me out. What a great policy. Maybe I'll toy with the idea of voting Tory, despite the 13, 14 years of chaos that we've had from them now. It's a headline sell, but what it does fail to do is actually tackle or address the fact that we've got a huge housing shortage in this country. The Tories have consistently failed to meet its target of building 300,000 homes a year. What's going to happen is, you know, people have said, yeah, we might get people on the housing ladder, but that's only going to make it then more competitive and going to drive housing prices actually up, which then is just going to be, you know, a catch-22. It's going to put people in a worse situation further down the line. So really, like I said, read the small print of this. Is it actually going to be better for you? We just don't know.
No, in the long run. What do you think, everybody? What do you think needs to happen to fix the housing market? We've plainly got a situation where house prices are going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. People who've already got a house want them to go up and up and up and up and up and up. Some people, it's their pensions that's sitting in that property. But others need to get into the housing market. And if they don't, then eventually those houses are going to just slump in price. There's no rental much of a market anymore. Landlords are selling up for Airbnbs and things like that. There's a huge problem. Is 1% mortgages going to fix it? What do you think? Do you know? Do you have any? Would this change your attitude towards voting Tory? Because I tend to think, Sophie, that they could offer everyone in the country £100,000 cash, and we'll all take the cash and go, yeah, I'm still voting for the other guy, because it's been 14 years and we're just bored with anything else. So the lowest fixed rates at the moment for a mortgage are about 4 or 5%. That's down from 6.6% that it rose to under Liz Truss, but still a lot more than the 2% sort of average for a mortgage they were not long ago. Alex says if the government came up with it, it's not good news for us and it's corrupt, period. Alex, you're such a cynic, but probably correct. Is the problem here, Sophie, that really why they've come up with this plan is that neither Jeremy Hunt nor Rishi Sunak have ever had to scrape together enough for a deposit, and they've never been unable to find 4% suddenly if they get it overnight. They've never had to worry about putting, a sweetie back on the shelf because they found themselves 13p short at the till, have they?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and we've got that throughout the Tories' leadership over these 14 years, and especially with someone like Rishi Sunak, who is, a multi-millionaire. Whether that was him asking a homeless person if they worked in business, whether it was him being unable to use a contactless card, we've seen all these instances that's actually shown that he is actually not connected with the public, and I don't think he lives like many people in this country do. Keir Starmer has consistently said that he just doesn't get Britain, in the sense that, he flies around in his private jet. Does he really know what it's like to be toughing it out in the cost of living crisis, or what these monthly repayments for a mortgage will look like for people? At the moment, the Tories and the Treasury, they're understood to be looking at, a series of different policy ideas, and they're waiting for their forecast to see how much actually headroom that they do have to spend in the spring budget in March. But one of these policies that they're looking at is inheritance tax and cutting tax for the wealthiest people. There's this 40% rate that, a couple, when they've got property, they have £1 million protected already, and they only pay tax above that after on inheritance. Do we really need to be cutting tax for these kind of people? And that's the big question with all of these policies. Whose interest is it in?
Yeah, and one of the things inheritance tax does, of course, is it forces families to sell property, gets it on the housing market, and keeps the prices. It redistributes some wealth, which is so that other people can afford to buy homes, and so on and so forth. Now, Lynn, she says, my interest rate is 9%, £2,300 a month, and there's nothing I can do about it. Tied into it, I know. 9% is terrible, says Ina. You're quite right. It's just appalling. It's sort of astonishing that not the government, but the party which gave us 9% interest rates, Lynn's 9% interest rate, is going to have the brass neck to sit there and go, oh, guess what? We're going to make it easy for you to get a mortgage and be screwed by conservative policies and the next lunatic they get into power. No, thank you very much. Right. Sorry to hear about that. And we need to move on a little bit. Now to the main story of the day. Storm Isha battered most of Britain last night. In fact, every square inch of it, I think. I don't know about you, Sophie. I was awake for most of it. Sort of wind howling around outside and waiting for the sounds of broken tiles or trees collapsing. Of course, when I woke up, there was just a bird feeder over in the garden, and that was it. Everyone survived. But that's not the case everywhere, is it? There's winds up to 99 miles an hour in some places. So how bad is it that people are waking up to this morning?
Well, yeah, we obviously had a lot of travel disruption last night. So people are obviously waking up in the wrong places this morning, so they weren't able to go around the country. But, we've got power cuts is a big thing that we've got obviously affecting people when they're working today. Like you say, lots of garden things, fences, stuff, roofs. We're seeing a lot of that. And then the trouble as well today, as we all often get in this aftermath of winds, is, we're expecting heavy downpours in parts of the country. Obviously, we've seen lots of flooding from Storm Henk over the past few weeks as well, and which has highlighted obviously a lack of flooding prevention in lots of parts of the country. So yes, we've got power cuts. Yes, we've had travel disruption. We've had a lot of impact overnight. But the fear is that there's more to come for people today as well.
Yeah, so there's power cuts. We've got power cuts right across the southwest, really, more than anything else. Tens of thousands of homes last night lost power. It's mainly across the southwest and some in Scotland where the winds were worst, and of course where it's harder sometimes for the engineers to get out and repair them. Now, I don't know about you, Sophie, but my Twitter timeline this morning, that's Newhaven. We can see there waves crashing across the harbour wall, massive queues at train stations and airports and so on, trees down, roofs down. There's some more footage there of just general sort of infrastructure and stuff that's just not been able to withstand a quick gust. And my timeline's full of people this morning who couldn't get off the planes at the airport when they landed because the stairs would be blown over by the wind, whose ferries had to bob about in the Irish Sea for 7 hours because it was too windy to get in the harbour. We've had these floods predicted, up to 4 inches of rain in places. Some people have had it very bad. But the thing with Isha really is that the whole country's been affected. Usually, storms affect a bit of the country. The north gets it, or the southwest cops it. But this was everybody, the entire country. Alex says, to be fair, my flat got absolutely battered last night. I thought my window was going to come through. I've got to drive 7 miles on my mobility scooter later to go to the chemist. I'm not looking forward to it. Oh, Alex, 7 miles on a mobility scooter. That is a hell of a long trip. I hope your battery stands up for it. And this is the kind of thing, isn't it? It's just, if Alex meets one fallen tree in the space of 7 miles, he's not going to get to the chemist. He's not going to get his pills. It seems to be pretty devastating, really, Storm, apart from my bird feeder, of course. But generally speaking, it's been very bad right the way across the country, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it does, you're getting that sense of it getting worse and worse, this extreme weather where we've been having warnings for years around climate change, around the weather getting worse. And we're having experts sort of last night and this morning warning that this is looking like it could be the worst season on record for winds and for storms. So the worst one that we've had before was 11 storms, and that was 2015 to 2016. So far in this season, which started in September, we're on our 9th one already, and we're already expecting Storm Jocelyn in the next few days. We're on Isha, which is, they're saying it's the quickest we've got to I in the alphabet before. And so I think, we're seeing it get worse and worse. And like I say, it's climate change is affecting us day to day now. We know things, obviously, with warmer weather creating faster winds, more intense environments for this extreme weather, rising sea levels, that obviously raises risk for hurricanes. We've seen that a lot over the US and Canada. And we're not immune to that as well. I know that many in the UK have said, we don't have this extreme weather. We don't have tornadoes or earthquakes or hurricanes in the same way. But as climate change does worsen, we are seeing it around us right now. And that's why it's so crucial that we get real measures from government on this to tackle climate change before things only get worse.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was some talk about tornadoes overnight. I don't know if they actually came up. There was certainly predicted that we had the right conditions for them.
Exactly.
And so, we've got, like you say, we've got Storm Jocelyn coming in a day or two, the 10th named winter storm, and the record is 11, which is back in 2015. And the storm season runs to August of these named storms. So we've still got 8 months. All we need to do is get one more storm after Jocelyn, and that's it. We've broken the record. So like you say, these storms are getting bigger and more frequent and more intense, and it's covering the whole country. But surely we need just to be somehow just have more resilient infrastructure. Find a way that train lines, power lines can get back up and running quicker than this to be protected. Some of those very remote places, we saw this when up in the northeast, when there are lots of power cuts for weeks last winter, they got power lines that are up in the air, up a pole. Like the Victorians had it, or the Edwardian, whenever the power lines got laid. There's no reason that when you're going up into the peaks and Cumbria and Scotland, places where it is incredibly windy, that you shouldn't be burying those cables underground. Surely we need to be more resilient than this, don't we?
Yeah, well, this is what I mentioned before. We've seen this with the lack of flooding prevention, and communities have absolutely been, decimated by the flooding that we've seen in recent months. There was a report that came out last week that just said that still new homes in 2024 and 2023 are being built on areas that are high risk of flooding. This is horrendous, that we have huge storms, your house is completely flooding, and your house has just been built. Why are they building homes there? There is advice from environment agencies, and planning permission is not coming through those. And like you say, we need the infrastructure. Things need to be tied together. And ultimately, this does come from central government. We've seen this with Rishi Sunak last year. He rolled back on net zero targets. We had a plan to ban new sales of petrol and diesel car by 2030. He rolled that back to 2035, which ultimately will only make it more difficult to meet the target of net zero by 2050. As I said, greenhouse gas emissions, rising temperatures, all of these things to come together and link together to make these extreme weather. They're not all in separate silos, and it requires action from government fast. I'll mention another report from the Office of Environmental Protection last week that said Rishi Sunak was on track to miss almost all of his targets on the environment. He's set to only meet 4 out of 40. This doesn't show leadership in what is such a fundamental issue facing us right now. And, we spoke about young people and appealing to young people on mortgages, but many young people are very passionate about environmental and climate change issues because this is their future.
Yeah, that was exactly the thought that just appealed to me. You're going to give them 1% mortgages, but you're also going to just break the planet. No, it's not going to work, is it? Simon on Twitter says, my Bimblu over here is total carnage. Well, lucky you, Simon. It's not the same everywhere, unfortunately. Mike, we just have Mike's comment back up. He says, it's been a disaster for the regions. All of Scotland's passenger and freight services were stopped at 7 o'clock last night. Has anybody seen the Transport Secretary? I don't even know who the Transport Secretary is. It Steve Barclay at the moment? It was Grant Shapps a minute ago.
Got Mark Harper as the Transport
Secretary. Oh, it's Mark Harper, is it? Oh, right.
They do move around a lot, don't they?
Did anyone draw a picture of Mark Harper? Probably not. They don't seem to be out. They don't seem to be. It's the 10th one, and the trains don't work again. They don't care. They've all got a helicopter. Why would they give a damn? What do you think, everybody? How have you managed to get through Storm Isha? Have you had any problems or issues this morning, apart from Alex and trying to get to the pharmacy? How's it reacted with you? How are you dealing with it? And part of the problem, I think, obviously we've got the fact that storms are bigger, they're more intense, especially in the case with Isha, because what happened there is you have warmer seas by the equator, which means that the jet stream coming up from the Caribbean to the UK just got supercharged. So it's more powerful, more wind, more turbulence, more everything. Bring these biblical winds to sort of all of Britain's 210,000 square kilometres, basically. And yet, like you say, we're not trying to hit net zero. We're no better at not having plastic in every single thing that we buy. We're not throwing away vast quantities of stuff. And I mean, just look at my background here, okay? Some parcel ribbon. It's plasticky. It's on a plastic reel. Got it on eBay, delivered to my house by a courier. And then what else we got? Oh, some tape for fragile things, right? Plasticky, delivered to my house by another courier. Not that you go to one place in your car once. You order things on eBay or Amazon and they all come in a separate van, don't they? And it's just how it is. And, got devices and stuff which are going to be obsolete in a certain number of years. And then do they get recycled? Do they not get recycled? The clothes that we're wearing, Sophie, where have they come from? What's come from China? What's come from India? Does it all need to come from these places? But this is how all of us live. Even when we're trying not to live like that, that is just what happens. Have we got any light really at the end of this sort of climate change tunnel? I mean, are Labour going to do anything any better than this? Because they had this green investment plan, didn't they? And talking about creating new jobs and solar power and all the rest of it. And they've been rolling back on that rather as well, to be brutally fair, haven't they? Are they getting back to the Tories?
Yeah, well, I think it's difficult. They had this £28 billion a year figure to spend on green projects. Obviously, they do have to be realistic. They're very conscious as a party in opposition that they get a lot of criticism if they can't fully provide a funding plan for commitments that they're making. Ultimately, they are still saying that they are going to work up to this £28 billion figure, which is hope. And, all we can have is hope at this time, and hope that politicians understand that green projects are a priority for the nation.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to start getting people, it's the kind of thing that appeals as much to Tory voters as it does to Labour voters. There used to be a split, didn't they, between this, and not anymore, really. Tory voters are also very keen on green issues, and Rishi's could do with sorting some of that out if he's actually serious about not losing all his politicians. Right, thank you for that, Sophie. Do get into the comments, anybody. What do you think about the green issues, about what the government can do, about the effects of Storm Isha on your neighbourhood? Tell us how bad it's been or not been. Let us know. But in the meantime, we have managed to find some good news for you. And I'm not even sure about this, but here we go. Now, I might deny this bit with my hands over my eyes, if you don't mind, because against my better judgment, today's good news is about spiders. In particular, and as soon as we can take this picture off the screen, I'll be taking my hands away from my eyes. One of the fouler spiders, which is the funnel web spider. Mercifully, we don't have any close-ups. Now, scientists have found that its venom can stop heart muscle from dying due to a lack of oxygen during a heart attack or a stroke. And so they're using it to make a new drug, which can also extend the lives of donor hearts, they think. Sophie, is this, thank God, is this proof that, as arachnophiles would have it, spiders are our friends, really? Or, considering that this life-saving bit of genius is inside a poisonous, 8-legged, fanged beastie, is it proof that the creator, if there is one, is a bit of a scumbag?
No, I think it shows there's always good in the darkness. There's always hope when there's fear. We've all seen Spider-Man. He got great powers, didn't he?
Great.
And he was a good guy in the end.
On the web, I'll go, yay, my heart isn't dying as quickly as it otherwise would.
It's obviously amazing. It shows scientific wonders and miracles that can be made. And again, as we've been talking about, the apocalyptic nature of climate change and greenhouse gases, it shows that, nature is also on our side, and we should hope to work with nature and not against it, I think.
Yeah, I'm not working with a funnel web spider, not again.
Well, you never know, you might have to one day, Susie.
But you know what, if they catch all the funnel web spiders and put them in a laboratory and then milk them for their venom, no one is going to complain about animal cruelty, are they? No one is going to. Well, there may be one or two, but they're just lunatics. We can forget about them. That's absolutely fine by me, and keep the funnel webs out of circulation would be good. I think I've got a few of them in my conservatory. I don't like them very much at all. Right, thank you very much, Sophie, for taking us through all this. And like you say, it's a nice note to end on. It's something that Mother Nature does for us, which is actually beneficial, rather than Storm Isha and letting us have to endure Liz Truss and the Tories all this time. And we will be back again, everybody, on Wednesday for another edition of the News Agenda. Till then, stay safe. Watch out for Storm Jocelyn coming in next. And we'll go through some of the wreckage I expect on Wednesday morning when we have another edition of the News Agenda Explained. Till then, everybody, tatty bye.